Welcome to the Explainer. So, if you're a new parent, a parent-to-be, or really any caregiver, you already know the drill, right? You are utterly exhausted, you're doing your absolute best, and yet you are constantly bombarded with unsolicited advice coming at you from literally every direction. The grocery store clerk, your well-meaning aunt, some random neighbor, everyone seems to have a rule you absolutely must follow. It is so overwhelming. Okay, let's dive into this and start clearing up the noise. We're going to separate the actual science of child development from those old wives' tales that just won't quit. Let's kick things off by posing a classic, highly stress-inducing question, one that nearly every new parent hears the second they pick up a crying baby. Oh, you better put that baby down before you spoil them. It implies that by simply offering a little comfort, you are somehow ruining your child's future character. And hey, if this question makes you anxious, you are definitely not alone. 57%. According to a national survey by the Civitas Initiative, that's exactly how many parents of young children worry about this specific issue. Plus, get this, 64% of grandparents actually believe a 6-month-old infant is not too young to be spoiled. I mean, this completely normalizes the anxiety you might be feeling, showing just how deeply ingrained this idea is in our culture. But to understand why we desperately need to let this go, we have to look at where it came from. The history of this advice is actually pretty shocking. It didn't come from some modern pediatric study. No, it started way back in the 1920s. During that era, so-called experts began telling parents they should hold back from picking up their crying babies. They theorized that being too responsive would make the child clingy. The catch? There was absolutely zero scientific evidence for this. It was just an opinion-based theory that somehow became gospel and got handed down from generation to generation. And this brilliantly illustrates where we get things completely backwards because modern child development research shatters that 1920s myth entirely. Responding to your baby's cries does the exact opposite of spoiling them. You see, sometime between 6 and 8 months old, babies discover cause and effect. When they cry and you respond, they learn that you are a reliable safety net. Let's break down the scientific facts here. Renowned child development experts like Dr. T. Barry Brazelton state that it is literally impossible to spoil a child in the first year of life. When you meet an infant's needs positively, it builds massive trust. Because they know you are their safety net, they actually gain the confidence to explore their surroundings. Paradoxically, this responsive relationship eventually helps them learn how to soothe themselves, which results in less fussiness and far more independence as they grow into toddlers. Okay, let's transition to a topic that is undoubtedly one of the most anxiety-inducing for any new parent: sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS. For decades, there was this intense historical confusion around the terrifying label crib death, which led people to mistakenly believe the crib itself was causing the tragedy. Thankfully, today, medical science has given us incredible clarity on how to protect our most vulnerable. This brings us to a massive counterintuitive fear, especially among grandparents who might remember advice from 30 years ago when tummy sleeping was actually recommended. The myth goes that a baby sleeping on their back will choke on their own spit up. But here are the facts. Babies who sleep on their backs might actually clear fluids better because of the way their anatomy is built. Putting a baby to sleep on their tummy actually traps heat, makes them harder to arouse, and literally doubles the risk of SIDS. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how perfectly Dr. Michael Goodstein, a neonatologist and international safe sleep expert, frames this. He says babies have the same protective mechanism as an adult that allow them to clear the airway. Too often, people mistake coughing and spitting out milk for choking, but they are not. They are clearing their airway. So trust the anatomy and always place the baby on their back. Let's pivot to another pervasive myth that needs to be permanently retired. There's this persistent rumor that childhood vaccines and shots cause SIDS. Well, the Institute of Medicine completely reviewed the hard data on this and found absolutely zero evidence that vaccines cause SIDS. Actually, scratch that, it's more than just zero evidence. Recent studies repeatedly demonstrate that keeping up with your baby's immunizations might actually have a protective effect against SIDS. Transitioning to the physical sleep environment itself. Room sharing, where the baby sleeps in their own safe space within your room, is highly recommended. But bed sharing, that is a major risk factor. In over 50% of sleep-related infant deaths, the baby is found in an adult bed. Think about it. Adult mattresses are soft, there are heavy blankets and pillows everywhere, and when adults fall deeply asleep, they make unconscious movements that can easily endanger a small infant. So the crucial point is, to minimize these environmental dangers, the National Institutes of Health has some very concrete, non-negotiable rules. You want a firm Consumer Product Safety Commission approved surface, a tight-fitting sheet, and absolutely nothing else in the crib. No adorable heavy blankets, no stuffed animals, no bumper pads, literally just the mattress, the fitted sheet, and a baby sleeping safely on their back.
All right, let's shift gears away from sleep and look at playtime. Specifically, a product that seems incredibly common in older household videos, the baby walker. Well, you might be surprised to learn that this product is actually considered so incredibly dangerous by pediatricians that the sale of baby walkers is completely banned in Canada. No way, right? Which poses a very logical assumption that many well-meaning parents make. Do walkers help babies walk sooner? I mean, it makes sense on the surface. You put them in a device that lets them zip around the living room on 2 feet, so it just feels like it must be great practice for the real thing.
We are going to immediately debunk that. The totally counterintuitive truth here is that plopping a baby in a walker skips the essential developmental steps of learning how to pull up on furniture and independently balance their own body weight. Because they aren't learning these crucial foundational skills, using a walker can actually delay their ability to walk independently.
But honestly, delayed walking isn't even the primary reason they are warned against. 230,000. According to a study published in the journal Pediatrics, that is the massive number of children under 15 months of age who were treated in U.S. emergency departments for walker-related injuries between 1990 and 2014. That is a staggering amount of emergency room visits.
The American Academy of Pediatrics highlights exactly why they are so dangerous. Walkers give babies this sudden speed and reach that they just aren't developmentally ready for. The majority of serious injuries happen when babies in walkers fall downstairs, suffering head and neck trauma, or they can suddenly reach hot coffee on a table or sharp objects on a counter. Furthermore, they give caregivers a false sense of security, which naturally leads to less immediate supervision. Pediatricians strongly advise using stationary standers instead to keep your children safe and happily upright.
To conclude this explainer and bring everything full circle, I want to leave you with this incredibly empowering quote from Parenting Counts. It says, "Ignore well-meaning advice from those who subscribe to the spoiling myth, and trust your instincts when your baby cries." As a caregiver, you know your baby better than anyone else. When you are armed with the actual science of safe sleep, child development, and physical safety, you can confidently ignore all that outdated hearsay. You can rely on facts, and most importantly, you can trust your own instincts to nurture and protect your child.
Which leads us to a final, provocative thought to take with you today. We've tackled spoiling, sleep positioning, and dangerous toys. But as you navigate the unsolicited advice in your own life, ask yourself, what other parenting myths are ready to be retired? Stay curious, lean on the science, and keep learning. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.